Managing Director of Paragon Trust Company and tax and private client practitioner, joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, so on Tuesdays we bring on Tony D, man. So it's been a nice sort of relationship, more than sort of. It's been a nice relationship. He reached out a while back, and we got a chance to talk to him. He visited us here in the studio. We're happy that he's with us every Tuesday to talk about a lot of things, not even remotely always about money, but. Tony, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm proud to be among you guys.
So you went for I guess you were at the University of, or you were in New Haven, sorry, and you're walking around and you felt like you were on another planet.
I felt like Harry Belafonte in The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. It was the most chilling thing to me just to see a city. Now, New Haven has its issues. You'll see a lot of, funny things happening, but to see absolutely nothing, and this world is changing in proportions that, believe me, I know I wasn't seeing, and I'm only seeing it a little, but most people aren't seeing it. They think they're going to go back to, quote-unquote, life as it was. We're not going to see that. It was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, you don't think we're going to go back to life before Corona?
We're going to have a different life because what's happened is, and I'd like to call what we're doing today, it's 1984 minus 2020,
right.
And the result is a negative number. We've been conditioned now in our brains to accept this little sort of caution chip or fear chip. And if you go back to the bombing of Pearl Harbor, when you hear people coming out and saying, this is unprecedented, bunk. Bull-ticky. Let me tell you something. After Pearl Harbor was attacked, you don't have to look to the 1918 pandemic. Look, start moving it up the road a little bit. There was a very real concern in the United States that, the mainland would be attacked. The Secretary of War under Roosevelt, Henry Stimson said, be prepared, folks. So there actually was, and you could read about it. They don't teach about it in the history books. The Battle of Los Angeles in 1942, where anti-aircraft fighters started shooting at what they thought were planes. Some people say there really were Japanese planes. All of this going on, and, it was like, hey, we're going to go on, and we're going to have our lives. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said to Judge Landis, in the Green Light Letter, it's the greatest good for the greatest number. We're not seeing that kind of thinking right now. We're saying, whatever we can do to rid the disease, I get that. But, I'm running into people with terrible financial problems. There are major health issues, spiritual issues, mental issues, alcoholism, wife beating, husband beating. I mean, it's like, people just kind of shrug their shoulders and move on.
It's interesting because supposedly the Second Amendment was the one reason why the Japanese, didn't invade us during World War II. That old adage, behind every blade of grass, an American may have a rifle, right? Something similar to that.
Something similar.
Yeah. So maybe obviously it was probably a lot closer than we might have thought back in the day. But all right, so all of these people having all these financial difficulties, right? And now we're talking about another stimulus package on top of this. It doesn't end. There's got to be this is not a bottomless sort of jar of cash that we have. It's got to end somewhere, doesn't it, Tony?
Well, yeah, it ends in Venezuela, and it's just like if you keep doing it, the economic principles are the same. When does it come to a point when you start killing the zoo animals for food, which is what they did over there? It's absolutely, positively insane.
Right.
And it's that if you're going to just think, I had a discussion yesterday with someone in government as far as, and they were talking about being overburdened. And I was telling them, look, the solution to your problem is not helping that person. Yes, you need to help that person. But what about, the job source that was keeping that person away from you? Are we dealing with that? No, we're just going to keep throwing money at it.
All right, so let's assume that on the 20th, supposedly the governor releases the reins a little bit, and he's talking about down the road, maybe another month, he releases them even more. But you know what, Tony, there's probably some businesses out there who won't come back, so those jobs won't return. They don't have them anymore. What do you think the unemployment rate will be, even if this thing is all said and done? In the end, I mean, double, triple what it was probably when this thing began?
Oh, easily. Because look at it this way: if I have a new person I'm working with who's in commercial real estate, what he's dealing with now is, of course, that's all occupancy and how many people can you get safely and comfortably on a floor. Whereas if you're cutting spaces and making bigger distances, that would be lesser rent. Can you pay your expenses? No. Maybe you go hat in hand to Congress and say, look, you're making me do this, help me. And that by definition is going to mean fewer people employed, fewer people with purchasing power. And, again, I go back to the Battle of Los Angeles and the mainland and Franklin Delano Roosevelt telling Judge Lenis, hey, it's the greatest good for the greatest number.
Tony D joins us Tuesdays. We talk about a number of different things. You wanted to touch on contact tracing, didn't you?
Oh, my Lord. And this is the thing. And again, this is that sort of myopic vision that we're seeing. Now, again, I am a proponent of tracing. Testing, I should say. I want to be able to have a test so this way when I go to an elderly client who has a heart issue, say, hey, I'm okay. You need not be concerned. We can sit side by side. We can work together, as I've done for 35 years or whatever the case may be. But there's a very slippery slope. No one in government, no one in my business really is seeing this, but for us, okay, slap on the back for me, as far as I pledge a confidential relationship to my client. I am bound by United States Code, freaking statute, that whatever you give me goes no farther than me for the purposes of which you have employed me. And that's not only me, that's nurses, that's bankers, that's whosoever. Now, if you're going to say to me, okay, well, who were you with? Well, I was with Mr. Joe. Lee, I could be thrown in jail, and by rights I should be, because that's the way the law was designed to do. These laws, HIPAA and the privacy statute, were designed to protect people. And it's like, okay, the greatest good for the greatest number. We're just going to throw that thing out. On our website, I have a letter that I've written to the Secretary of the Treasury about this, saying, at least in my profession, you need to protect those of us that are going out from, shall we say, state overreach. And let me just say this. I am not a constitutional expert. I could barely do what I do. But all of these things, as far as, the wearing of masks and I go out, I wear a mask. I don't want others to be upset by what I may or may not be doing. None of this was passed by a legislature. None of this has the force of law. It's done by executive order. I'm waiting for the case that says, the federal case that says, you can't do it, that's it, this can no longer go on. I mean, right now it's just a kabuki rain dance, and they're playing this thing out for as long as they possibly can. And, again, the greatest good for the greatest number. How are we accomplishing that? Please tell me.
Yeah, you see the governor's approval ratings spike. I mean, he's up in the 60s now. Before the start of the year, he was like the second worst rated governor in the entire country, like had a 12 or 13% approval rating. And now you're up around 65. I mean,
he's a great governor if you want to stay home and hide under the bed. I mean, basically, one thing I do encourage people to look at is Stephen Moore and Art Laffer, and I believe another economist rated him the second worst economically, because ask yourself something. We all pray for a return to normal. Many, many, many good people. I think of the automobile industry. I think of the retail industry. Hey, let's go out and shop a car on a Saturday.
Right.
Do something for fun. That's not happening. So somebody looking at Connecticut right now, why on earth would you possibly come here to do anything? And that troubles me, because this is a good state. There are good people here who can do good things, and I don't want to see us, lost in the mess of whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to keep it clean.
Think about all the freedoms that we have lost here in the last 4 months. You just mentioned people coming here to Connecticut. Is anybody thinking about going someplace to restart a life, to go get a job? Is there somebody listening to me right now saying that, I was thinking about going to Colorado. I'm going to go to Colorado to become a X, Y, or Z. That's completely stopped, hasn't it? Like the dreams of people they've been gone.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, you're right. You're absolutely right. But yet, what I tell people is, okay, They gave us a mess. I've spent my whole life saying they're handing you lemons, make lemonade. How do you make lemonade in this? There's other things you can do to be lighter on your feet, more creative. They may not be the exact same dreams, but you'll find something in there. And the whole idea is get out ahead of what the others are doing. One thing I will say, and this goes back to those old Earl Nightingale tapes that I still listen to. What you have to do in your industry is, whatever your industry is think about where you're going to be 10, 15 years from now in an industry, and sit and make a list to yourself. Start doing those things now. We can't control the world, but we can make a better world from where we sit.
I just think, though, the point I was trying to make is that people are sort of, their whole life has come to a complete screeching halt. And even if, like you're a young person, let's say you're just fresh out of college, you're 22, and you thought about going to Washington State because you thought it would be, exciting
to go.
Yeah, exciting and a great place to start. Well, you can't do anything. You can't really root your life and move to Washington because, then you'll have to social distance when you're out there, and you're not going to have a job, and none of that. It's just really, it's like everything comes to a complete halt. So.
But it's going to change, and that's the whole thing. Look beyond this. It'll be different, but it will be better. There will be an issue. Mark my words, there will be an issue. There will be something in the federal court as far as, quote unquote, governing by continued, whatever you want to call it, executive decision. That needs to stop, and this is where legislatures need to step up. And they're not doing it. And the other thing is, when you get back to contact tracing, our state, along with other states, I'm sure, Rhode Island and New York as well, they have, information sharing. We talked about that on the tolls. Right. We were the only people that did. Politicians came on your show. They're dancing like Ginger Rogers. So basically what it is, folks, you need to start asking these questions right now.
All right. Listen, I got to run. I'm running late, but thank you, pal. I'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
You got it, kid. Tony Dick, there he is. My fault. We're running late, not yours, my friend. All right, Bob Lazar.